This is SeptumSin versus the world, and now we're going back into the past, back into the early 90s when the punk scene was, well, still there, but this particular type of punk scene, this hardcore punk scene, was just getting started. Of course, we're talking about the Anhedenia film Orange County Hardcore Scenester. I love this film. This is a documentary film. Essentially, he points out at the beginning, this may or may not be 100%. This is mostly on his takes where he was and when he was personally there. And it is an interesting look. I did some research after that because it was really cool. It was a deep dive into the punk scene from the late 80s to, pretty much almost throughout the 90s, as to how the hardcore scenes and all these indie bands got started. Bands like, bigger bands like Offspring and such were talked about in there because these were the ones there in Orange County. I looked up a lot of the stuff that he had said and I was like, wow, this stuff is legit. And it was really cool. As somebody who was fairly deep into the scene in the late 90s and early 2000s, I admit I wasn't performing, but I did get to travel with some people who were in a band. And I also got to go to a number of house parties and little events. So I know a lot of the stuff that they're talking about, and it was really cool. I loved just listening to certain bands in the scene. I liked the Offspring, especially the early stuff. I liked some of the other types of bands mentioned. I knew several of them as far as by their sounds, and it was really neat to hear this. There were a couple of bands I remember hearing, like Fall on Deaf Ears and Corn on Macabre. These were really awesome, and if you could hear them play their Painted Black cover, it shook the whole house down to the foundation. This was a good, solid, deep dive. Anyone who really, really enjoys punk rock or the history of punk rock should check this out. This guy was there. This guy was legit. You should check it out. Now, as far as the negatives, if you're not into it, like any documentary, if you don't really care about the subject matter, you're not going to care about the film. But that's it. That's all I've got for you. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. This has been SeptumSin, and I will see you on the next one. Oh, wait. I forgot to say if I get this on physical media. Of course I get this on physical media. This would be an awesome one to package with some of the albums. If he could get some of the stuff together of the band that he was with and just package it with some of that as a soundtrack type thing. It would just be really awesome to hear. But again, you never know. We'll see you on the next one.